Well, hello and welcome to our front yard garden in the South Carolina upstate. It is episode 25 here in 2024. It's July 20. No, I just looked and I think it is the 26th. I forgot. It's a Friday morning. Very pleasant day. It's going to be in the upper 80s today. Right now it's kind of hazy. Not really going to rain, I don't think. We've had a lot of rain this week, so a lot of plants have grown. We've got a lot more flowers out now than we did last week, so we're going to go through all those. And as always, we're starting here at the mailbox bed. I wanted to get out here in the morning while our morning glories were still in bloom to some extent. Some of them are already, the ones that are in the direct sun are already starting to wilt, as is typically the case. But these are so pretty. They've really kind of taken over the mailbox as the clematis here have largely finished up. And it's interesting, as I say that, I noticed when I came out this morning, we have a little grouping of clematis flowers, little Giacomini's here who have come out. I think they're trying to compete with their little cousins up here, the morning glories. So we've got a lot of purple in our mailbox bed. It's very pretty, and I think we'll have more and more of the morning glories as we get into the later part of summer, and they'll continue to grow, and they're even down in here amongst the vinca. They're going to continue to grow and flower probably until we get into the first frost at the end of October or early November, which is really nice. We tried growing these when we lived in Ohio some years ago. We never had much success with them because they would grow and grow and grow. The greenery would be great, but they didn't put flowers out until we got into about Labor Day for some reason, and then it was usually about 2 weeks after that, or maybe 3, that we'd get our first frost and they'd just die. So it was not a terribly successful plant for us, but here they've done absolutely great. For whatever reason, they're blooming much earlier, and we really should get a ton of color as we move forward into the middle part of summer and eventually into fall. Again, as we mentioned before, vinca doing very well. We've got vinca that we bought at Walmart maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, doing great, and then the ones that are coming up from seed, or not from reseeding from last year, still growing. They're going to really give us a lot of color as the year progresses, but they're still fairly small. And then, of course, a lot of these weeds, very common weed, kind of looks like a fern. I don't know the name of it, but it's everywhere down here, and staying on top of it is almost impossible because it grows right up amongst all the others, and if you try to get Roundup on it, it kills off the vinca. So we just kind of let them go to some extent. The other big impact flower here in this bed is the zinnias, and as you can see, they are attracting butterflies and moths in large numbers. This one is particularly beautiful. Coming out to say hi to us today. Look at the pattern on those wings. He's absolutely gorgeous. Not a monarch, but some absolutely gorgeous species. And then we have a little moth up here. I usually say that our Veronica in the backyard are the number one insect flower, but the zinnias today at least seem to really be attracting at least the butterflies and moths. The Veronica tend to get bumblebees. That's the big thing there. And these are not really getting bumblebees to any extent. Now here we have a dragonfly. He's going all over the place. Getting any of these for any length of time is kind of tough, but just getting all kinds of varieties. I actually, to be honest with you, maybe it's the time of day, but I don't remember such a variety of different insects with these zinnias before. It's really impressive. And here we do have a bumblebee digging his way through all the pollen on this, but yeah, 2 different moths on this one. I'm not a big insect person. I don't know a lot about insects, but when you see this many different varieties and they're having so much fun on these zinnias, it's really hard to not pay attention. Anyway, the zinnias are doing very, very well. They should continue to flower really through, for the most part, through the end of the growing season in October, November, and so we're really enjoying those. We have some phlox kind of hidden back here. Once the zinnias grow to this size, you don't really see the phlox anymore. They're kind of getting close to finishing up, so we won't have a whole lot left with those. And as we come back up here, this bed is primarily a spring bed, but it is showing off some early vinca that we've planted in here. These are all from seedlings that my wife Jenny put together a few weeks back. They're still growing, but probably in another 2 or 3 weeks we'll start to get some more flowers out of those, like the ones here. And then as we get into the bigger bed, we have just a big mix of summer flowers. These particular zinnias with the blood red flowers, this is the only one of these that we have that is this color. And then all the others we've grown from seed. I believe this one we actually got from a mail order catalog. That's why the color is a little bit unusual. And then, let's say, just a mix of a lot of different things. Vinca, some dianthus in here. Mostly a spring flower, but it's still giving us some color. Probably will for a while yet. Another one in the same category is Coreopsis. Kind of been taken over by weeds. There's one flower left. There's a few buds, so we'll get a few more flowers out of that. But the weeds are kind of taking over that one. It needs to be weeded pretty thoroughly. Over here we had Liatris. This was a bulb that we put in back in the early spring. It's pretty well finished up. You see a little tiny bit of purple down there, but basically it's done. And then in the background we have our big faithful climbing rose. Struggled early in the year. The trellis kept falling over, and then it got some black spot, but now it seems to have really stabilized and it's putting out a lot of flowers, these bright red roses, just like last year. It's really been the one extremely successful rose. We have some climbers over here that have had a lot of greenery. It's all over the place, as you can see, hanging off the front of the house. Nowhere to really go, but they don't really do much in terms of flowers. We get a handful out of these. One's yellow, one's red, and most of those are spring, and then you don't really see much else. Back over here we have Russian sage. It's already peaked. We'll probably have a little bit of color in the next couple of weeks, but that's about it. We have some Shasta daisies in the back here, and then some black-eyed Susans. These have all traveled just through the air from the ones we have in the back, but as the summer progresses we're going to get a lot more color back up here. Most of our black-eyed Susans are in the backyard, but we'll get a decent amount of color here leading into the latter part of summer. But the between the Vinca and the zinnias, those are the really big impact plants or flowers in the front yard. I forgot to mention our marigolds still doing well. They need to be deadheaded, but it's interesting to watch. I mean, we've got a lot of blooms on these, but the blooms overall are not as big. When we bought these in the spring, I was referring to them as pom-pom marigolds. Those are what we usually seek out. They're a little harder to find. It's just a variation of the normal African marigold. But as the year has progressed, the size of the blooms has really decreased. They're not the big, gigantic ones. They're probably about half to 2/3 the size that they were when we first bought them, but they are still giving us a lot of color, so I'm pretty happy with that. And one thing I forgot to mention about the zinnias was the variety of colors. We've got different shades of yellow. Right here we have a mustard yellow and a dark yellow, different shades of pink. This is one that we don't see very often, kind of a peach color. It's almost a perfect flowers, just perfectly circular. One up here, kind of an off-white, and as I say, these will continue to bloom for quite some time, which will be really nice. Over here, honestly, the rest of the front yard is kind of done. A lot of our front yard is basically spring related. These hydrangeas have long since peaked. They have a little bit of color left, but not much. They're slowly fading out. I have my little lemon grove over here. 4 small lemons in their original buckets, and then a big orange tree here. It's getting some new growth on it finally, and our big lemon that's been around for 3 or 4 years, also getting some growth on it, but unfortunately not much in the way of blooms. We had a little bit of that back in the spring, but not much. Speaking of blooms, we have a snapdragon here that is doing pretty well. It's kind of a late bloomer. The snapdragons over here came out in the spring. They were blooming back in March and April, and then they finished up in May. We're getting a little bit of a second surge here, but not much. And then over here, this is primarily a spring bed. Not much to show at this point. A lot of greenery at this stage, hostas and so on. I did come through here a couple weeks ago and chopped out the all the crepe myrtle from this tree. Sprigs were popping up all through the garden. Got all those chopped out. But over here, it's mostly viburnum and azaleas. Of course, those are all early spring. And then hydrangeas, those have all finished up. And this butterfly bush is largely finished, but there is a little bit of activity here. It's a nice light purple color back in here. We're going to probably chop this back next year. It's grown kind of out of control. It looks like it's getting kind of a second wind now. There are more blooms on this than there were last year. Typically, you get into the hotter months of the year, like right now, it's not doing a whole lot, but we're actually kind of getting its second wind. I think we're seeing hopefully some more nice color off of this over the next few weeks if we're lucky. And then looking up, you can see the crepe myrtle, and this is a beautiful tree that is very common around the upstate. I can't tell you exactly where it grows the most, but we get 4 colors around here. These bright pink ones like we have. There are white ones and kind of a bright purple color, and then a pale lavender color. And we have all 4 of those varieties in our development, quite a few of them. In fact, our neighbors next door have the very light lavender colored ones, and so that's a really nice thing as we drive down the street, seeing all that tree color. You don't expect that in this time of year, as it usually trees that flower are more spring oriented, but this is one that happens to do well in the summer. It was one of the first things we noticed when we moved down here 6 years ago, which was in July. All the crepe myrtle were just coming into bloom, and they stayed in bloom for about 2 months, which was really fun. Then we have some more vinca here in this bed, and then behind those we have a few dahlias. Our dahlias have grown well. The greenery does well, but the flowers have kind of struggled a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. We have a climbing rose that's giving us a couple of blooms here, and this phlox has gotten tall and started to bloom here just in the last week or so, which is nice timing because our oriental and Asiatic lilies have all finished up here. Those were kind of dominating for about a month. Before that, it was these knockout roses and daylilies in this area. The daylilies, of course, are long finished. Knockout roses giving us a handful of blooms, not a lot. they're again largely, at least these are largely spring related. And then we have zinnias and some more dianthus in this area. But this is another bed that's primarily spring related. We had Monarda back in here in large numbers, but they're pretty much finished up now too. So there you go. That's our front yard in a nutshell. There's actually a little bit more to show off this week than last week. Some more things have come out. The rain really helps. We had a really dry spell here. Had not really lent itself to a lot of blooms, but it's looking really good now. I'll also mention this little miniature rose. We haven't deadheaded it, but it looks like it's slowly headed for a second round. We had a lot of flowers on this. That's what's called a petite knockout rose. We had a lot of flowers on that in the spring, but it's really kind of in a latent phase right now. So it might be another month or so before we get a lot of color off of it. And again, if we would just cut off some of the dead stuff, it would, I think, do very well. But that's easier said than done for us. Also, I was just about to sign off, and then I realized we're not sure why, but we have 2 tomatoes here. These have just traveled by seed. We have a lot of tomatoes in the backyard. These have just come up. They even have a couple little flowers on them, which is really cool. So never expected that, but you never know what you're going to get with a garden. So hope it's sunny wherever you are. Looks like we're slowly getting some clearer skies. There's a little bit of a chance of rain later on, but I think for the most part it should be fairly dry this weekend. And until next time, we're happy gardening.